Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. Starting with Ethiopia. Ethiopia's Tigray region militia have fired rockets on November 20th at the distant capital of the neighboring Amhara region, the Amhara authorities have said, raising worries that the conflict could degenerate into civil war if it hasn't already turned into civil war. Quote, the illegal TPLF group have launched a rocket attack around 1:40 a.m. in Bahir Dar, end quote, the Amhara government's communication office said, referring to the Tigray People's Liberation Front. The rockets caused no damage, it said. Bahir Dar, Amhara region's lakeside capital, is located hundreds of miles from the fighting in Tigray. Tigrayan refugees have told Reuters the Amhara militia is fighting on the government side and the two regions have a border dispute. A local journalist and another resident in Bahildar said they heard two explosions and had been told by people in the area that at least one missile hit near the airport. Quote, on Ethiopia, the situation in the Tigray region and the ethnic targeted violence, the allegations of atrocities, and the human rights abuses are of deep concern. There is a real danger of an imminent and major humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia and in the close region. We are very much concerned about these prospects and we have reiterated our calls for dialogue and to stop violence and return to dialogue. End quote. The EU top diplomat Josep Borrell said, commenting on results of the Foreign Affairs Council on November 19. Quote, I briefed ministers about my calls with Ethiopian and regional partners to whom I expressed my concerns and the European Union's readiness to support a peaceful solution and an inclusive dialogue. There has been an intensive diplomatic outreach at different levels to stakeholders that could influence the two parties. The Commission has informed the Council about the mobilization of financial resources to try to help the Ethiopian refugees that have fled the region, the conflict, to the neighboring countries, mainly Sudan, end quote, the EU diplomat explained. Now, while the international community scrambles to put together a credible plan or even a secure space for any future talks for the Ethiopian people regarding what I would dub as their civil war, it seems that the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front are adamant to fight it out, with the TPLF trying to spread the conflict as a way to get the Ethiopian government bogged down into a long, bloody war with a high price. Moving on, the New York Times story titled, quote, Somalia worries that a US withdrawal would be disastrous, end quote, quotes a few analysts who say the Somali government would have a hard time fighting the Islamist group Al-Shabaab if US troops leave. Now, it is no secret that the New York Times has for a long time been a somewhat of a pro-war news outlet. When it comes to international wars, it seems like they want an endless war. They just want perpetual war. Sometimes it seems like they're not the New York Times, maybe they are the New War Times. Anyhow, I digress. Now, as the article continues, the article only quotes from a current Somali source. The Somali official is a tweet from Somalia's president from October. President Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed said a victory over Al-Shabaab could only be achieved through, quote, continuous security partnership, end quote, with the US. Now, the rest of the quotes are from think tank analyst, an anonymous EU official, and a former US military officers who are all warn how a US withdrawal would be a win for Al-Shabaab. Now, there are approximately 700 US troops in the country, and most were sent there by President Donald Trump. His administration also increased drone strikes to record numbers and loosened the rules of engagement for the drone war against Al-Shabaab. The US bombed Somalia 63 times in 2019, the most US strikes on Somalia in a single year. The Trump administration carried out more airstrikes on Somalia in the first 7 months of 2020 than were carried out under both the administrations of George W. Bush and Barack Obama combined. Now, although President Trump is considering a troops withdrawal, it does not mean the drone war would come to an end. When the Times first reported the potential Somalia withdrawal, officials told the newspaper that the withdrawal would not affect US forces stationed in Kenya and Djibouti, where the US drones carrying out airstrikes on Somalia are based. US troops in Somalia are mainly stationed there to train the local army. Officials told the Times that as per the Trump administration's plan, these duties, as well as counterterrorism, would be shifted to the bases in Kenya and Djibouti. Now, in principle, I support different countries to hold joint military exercises and trade knowledge in order to better their skills in conducting security effectively and within the law. However, I don't like our army to be inside a country where the people do not welcome us, and that is the case in various Muslim countries. Now, I'm sure we can find a way to help train the Muslim governments without aggravating the local population, and I think building bases in neighboring countries where we are welcome is a good start. Now, I will keep an eye on these developments and cover any story that would be of interest. Moving on to the Caucasus region, the Azerbaijani forces have entered the war-ravaged ghost town of Aghdam on Friday, regaining a once beloved city over a quarter of a century after being driven out by Armenian forces. Aghdam and the surrounding region of the same name are the first several territories adjacent to separatist Nagorno-Karabakh to be turned over under a ceasefire that ended 6 weeks of intense fighting between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, called the takeover of the region a quote, great political success, end quote, that wouldn't have been possible without military gains. Although regaining Aghdam is a triumph for Azerbaijan, the joy of returning is seared with grief and anger as Azerbaijanis confront its devastation. The city of Aghdam was once home to 50,000, known for its white homes and an elaborate 3-story tea house, but it is so ruined that it is sometimes called the Hiroshima of the Caucasus. Now, after the population was driven out in 1993 by fighting, they were followed by Armenian pillagers who stripped the city bare, seeking both booty and construction materials. One of the city's happier eccentrics was the bread museum, which is in ruins. The cognac factory is gone. Today, the only structurally whole building is the mosque. From the top of the elaborately patterned minarets, the view is of a vast expanse of jagged concrete and houses reduced to shells, all encroached upon by a quarter-century's growth of vegetation. Aliyev said that his government is aiming to restore Aghdam and the other territories after the areas have been cleared of mines. Aghdam was a place many Azerbaijanis felt a special affection for, not least because of its status as the breeding center for the speedy Karabakh horse, which is considered the national animal. Another bitter yet proud memory of Aghdam also remains. It was the home of the first victims of the region's descent into chaos. in February of 1988, 2 days after the Nagorno-Karabakh parliament petitioned to link the autonomous region with the Soviet Armenia. A group of angry men set off from Aghzam to the regional capital Stepanakert. Before they got there, they were confronted by police and ethnic Armenian villagers. 2 of the protesters were shot to death. News of their deaths sparked rage in Aghzam, and a crowd gathered weapons to begin to head to Stepanakert. But a local woman stood on the roof of a vehicle and threw her scarf in the road, a gesture that a local tradition forbade men from going further. The dramatic incident was memorialized by Yevgeny Yevtushenko, the Soviet Union's most renowned poet, who called her action, quote, almost crazy, the great insanity of kindness, the only wisdom that saves us, end quote. In marked contrast to the thorough destruction of the city of Aghzam, ethnic Armenians have taken assiduous care of one of their major historical sites in the province. The foundations of Tigranakert, which dates back more than 2,000 years, have undergone archaeological excavation, and some of what has been found has been placed in an 18th century fortress. As the Aghzam handover approached, workers this week labored to remove some of the artifacts, including a carved stone which required the efforts of several men to lift. Now, it seems to my gut that I was right about the current deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan would hold out. And I am happy that the deal did held out. It's good to see that the 2 sides can work. However, I would urge both sides to take the path of forgiveness and healing over revenge. I would urge both countries to find a way to sort out their differences without another war. Moving on to France, the French President Emmanuel Macron has given the French Council of Muslim Worship 2 weeks to draw up a charter of quote-unquote Republican values. Its member organizations and affiliates will be expected to comply with amid a row over Islam's place in the country. Now, in the wake of deadly attacks and a stated attempt to tackle quote-unquote extremism, Macron is making efforts to centralize the formation and accreditation of Muslim religious leaders in the country. His plans have been criticized by some in the Muslim community in France and abroad. At the president's request, the new charter must include recognition of the quote-unquote values of the republic, specify that Islam in France is a religion and not a political movement, and put an end to foreign involvement in French mosques. Now, according to AFP, Macron called on some Muslim federations in the country to, quote, do away with ambiguities, end quote. Macron was reportedly presented with a proposal from the council for the creation of a national council of imams, which would reportedly create a plan within 6 months to accredit imams in the country, according to a statement from the Élysée Palace. Now, created in 2003 under then Interior Minister Nicolas Sarkozy, the CFCM is a federation of Muslim religious organizations in France. While it has become the principal interlocutor of the government with regards to issues of organized Islam in France, it does not officially seek to represent French Muslims. Unlike religions such as Catholicism or the Greek Orthodox Church, Islam does not have centralized leadership, which will likely complicate French efforts to consolidate training and accreditation of religious community leaders. While the degree of qualifications expected from imams may vary from one country or area to another, in practice, sufficiently knowledgeable individuals can lead prayers and religious rites without formal training. The planned National Council of Imams would reportedly require different levels of qualification, including fluency in French and university degrees, depending on whether one leads prayers, gives sermons, or engages in public speaking. As far as it remains unclear to what what exact consequences will face imams and organizations that do not abide by the future charter. However, AFP reported that under the planned National Council, imams would receive a type of accreditation card that could be granted or rescinded based on their adhesion to the charter. In early October, Macron sparked controversy during a speech in which he called Islam, quote, a religion in crisis, end quote, and vowed to crack down on alleged Muslim, quote unquote, separatism, something that I personally do support President Macron in doing. Paris's plans have since intensified following the killing of a schoolteacher and an attack in the city of Nice that left 3 dead that same month. A draft law on quote unquote separatism is expected to be presented to the cabinet on 9 December. Macron has indicated that he aims for the estimated 300 imams from countries such as Turkey, Morocco, and Algeria currently working in France to leave the country within 4 years. Tensions over quote unquote political Islam, extremism, and free speech have spread beyond France's borders in recent months. Now, I welcome President Macron's efforts to push for the Muslim leadership to comply with the rules of the country. I believe in the separation of the mosque and the state has to be implemented and solidified if we in the West are to live in peace both for Muslims and non-Muslims. This may be a poison pill that Muslims would have to accept, and I think that the French government has taken, let's just say, their time to come to this conclusion. But it's better to be late than never arrive. Moving on into Hong Kong, the Hong Kong activist Joshua Wong on Friday told the DW that he faces up to 5 years in jail if found guilty of instigating unlawful protests last year. Wong rose to prominence during the pro-democracy demonstrations that were triggered by the introduction of the Fugitive Offenders Amendment Bill by the Hong Kong government. The now aborted legislation would have potentially meant the extradition of Hong Kong citizens to mainland China, where Wong and other activists felt residents would be subjected to Beijing's stricter approach to civil liberties. Wong, whose trial starts on Monday, remained defiant despite the threat of a lengthy jail term. Quote, prison bars have never stopped me from activism and thinking critically. Even though more than 10,000 Hong Kongers have been arrested since last summer and 2,000 people, including me, were prosecuted, it's still important for us to stay and fight. End quote. Now I commend Mr. Wong's spirit. Anyhow, but Wong has little confidence in the judicial process ahead. Quote, courts in Hong Kong are being interfered with by Beijing authorities and the rule of law in Hong Kong exists in name only. End quote. Police arrested Wong on September 24th for participating in an unauthorized assembly in October 2019, as well as for violating the city's anti-mask law by covering his face during the protests. That arrest added to several unlawful assembly charges or suspected offenses he and other activists have been accused of related to last year's protests. Despite the pressure, Wong showed no signs of easing up as he said, quote, no matter what happens, to defy the greatest human rights abuser is essential to restore democracy for our generation and the generation following us. End quote. Wong hopes others will keep a watchful eye on developments in Hong Kong should he go to prison. At the beginning of the last month, China formally approved the arrest of 12 Hong Kong activists caught last month while allegedly trying to flee the former British colony for Taiwan. Now, I will continue to cover any news that I find worthy on this matter. One thing is clear that Xi Jinping has completely bungled his rule and his reputation. But I don't think his rule is in any kind of danger at this stage or in the near future. However, Hong Kong it seems, is going to lose its position as a financial hub when Beijing starts to come hard on Hong Kong, sucking up all of its glory, resulting in another place that the communists ruined for the people. Well, that's it for this video. If you like the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comment sections your thoughts, criticisms, and anything I might have missed. And I will see you in the next video.